Thank you. So while we're waiting, Steve Patterson, inquiring minds want to know what's going on your property.
It's amazing. We're just clearing that out. It looks so much better. That's it.
It does indeed, and it seems it's taken an awful long time to.
Yeah, it's a bigger job than we thought, but it does look nice.
It looks lovely already, and it'll probably, as you're going to put grass or shrubs or landscaping or something.
Yeah, I just hope the weeds don't take over, and we're doing it again next year.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay. So, Tricia, are we good to go, or?
Yep, we're
Did
recording.
you check on YouTube?
It says it's going, but I'll double check.
Yeah, I want to make sure the stream is up, please. How about I put my phone on?
I'm getting messages that says it's recording live on YouTube right now.
Oh, you got the notification from YouTube?
No. Well, I've got something in the corner that just says recording live on YouTube, and also.
Right. But I just want to check, double check and make sure the stream is going.
Yeah, it's going.
Oh, it is. Okay. I was waiting.
Do these get permanent?
Checking. I was pulling it up on my phone.
Trish or somebody, do these get permanently stored on the town website or somewhere?
Well, they're on our YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. Is the town's YouTube channel or?
No, I made our one for just for the planning and zoning board.
Okay, great. Just in case I ever need to see something.
Yeah, they're all up there.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
We're hearing somebody.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody's logging in twice, perhaps. Anyway, let's. I'd like to call the May.
Your participant.
Okay, I don't know. Is that Lisa? Lisa, perhaps your phone is on and your computer. Otherwise, calling the May meeting to order of the Pine Plains Planning Board. I wish I could order we have a quorum, right? Of course. 1, 2, 3. Yes. First up on the agenda is the Hudson Valley project. Sarah, how did we say we were doing? Sarah, how did we say we're doing this? Or is the applicant going to speak first, or are we, or explain what's going on, or what are we doing?
Good evening, members of the Planning Board. This is Sarah Yackel from BFJ Planning. The item you have before you this evening is the Hudson Valley project. We have not asked, Warren and I think in discussions with you, Michael, have not asked the applicant to present tonight. They did present at the last meeting, and tonight really is just to move the process along and adopt a resolution declaring the Planning Board's intent to serve as lead agency for the environmental review process. This is just the very first step in the process, and will after a 30-day review period where a notice is sent to all the involved agencies, you will presumably become lead agency in approximately 30 days, and at which point you are in a position then to declare a positive declaration, which signals your intent to prepare an environmental impact statement and conducts the required scoping process. So this really just kicks off the environmental review process. And we did circulate a resolution and as well as a notice to that effect that would be sent out tomorrow to all of the involved agencies.
Okay, thank you. And I hope all the members got the email today with the final version of the resolution, and hopefully you had a chance to review it. Now, again, this is a resolution to making our notice of intent to be lead agency for this project. Warren, so what, so we just handle this like a resolution now at this point? We read it out and vote on it, or what?
Yeah, you all have before you the notice of intent, which has attachments to it. We internally worked on it and vetted it, and, changed it and amended it with the applicant's counsel and planners. So it's ready to go from our standpoint. So there's no need for you to read the notice of intent. It's just a matter tonight of you passing the resolution, which we prepared for you.
And I don't have to read the resolution, or do I?
You can. It's not a long resolution if you like. I don't think it's. Do you have the final version? Because it was a little bit of.
So I have the.
There was some
version
tweaking that went on today. So, and I was on the road, so I'm assuming that you got the final.
I have the 3:30 version. Is that the
That
last
sounds right.
That's the latest.
Yeah, I think you can read that into the record, and certainly the notices will become part of the record also.
Just write something. Okay, so, and again, the members got a chance to review this before the meeting, hopefully. I sent it out when I received it. Town of Pine Plains Planning Board, resolution declaring planning board's intent to serve as lead agency for the seeker review of the Hudson Valley project and authorizing circulation of attached notice of intent pursuant to the applicable seeker regulations. Whereas 1133 Taconic LLC has submitted an application to the Pine Plains Planning Board for a proposed residential conservation subdivision on a site containing 3,100 acres, with 2,655 acres in the town of Pine Plains and 445 acres in the town of Milan. And whereas the town planning board has determined this to be a type 1 action under SECRA, and the applicant has submitted, among other documentation, a part 1 of the full environmental assessment form with attachments. And whereas the planning board has determined that it is the most appropriate agency to serve as lead agency with regard to the SECRA review of this project. And whereas the coordinated review is required relating to type 1 actions. Hold on. Sorry, I didn't have that window active. Required relating to type 1 action. And whereas the designation of a lead agency is the appropriate next step in the SECRA process. And upon confirmation of lead agency status, the planning board intends to formally require preparation of a draft environmental impact statement and schedule public scoping to invite input regarding the content of the DEIS from the public and from involved and interested agencies. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the planning board hereby authorizes the planning board clerk to circulate the attached notice dated May 12th, 2021 with attachments pursuant to the applicable SECRA regulations. The planning board members voted as follows. Okay, so can I have a motion to accept this resolution and pass it?
I move to accept the resolution.
I second.
Okay, we're gonna do a voice vote on this, a roll call. So Peter?
Yes, I vote to approve the resolution.
Steve?
I vote to approve as well.
Vicky?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Oh, not to scroll. Is there anyone else here?
Me, Kate, yes.
Thank you, Kate. And I vote yes as well. So, are there any members voting no? All right, let it show that the resolution passed unanimously. Okay.
Michael,
Yes?
could we get a list of the agencies that this is going to be sent to? That wasn't included in the attachment.
Sure. I think Tricia has that and can forward that to you. I sent that to you in an email. If you need it, Trish, just let me know.
Yep, I have it. Thank you.
Great.
It was in the big application too, I believe. It was buried.
Yeah.
Page 49, I think. Yep.
but we have
You
to
are
get that.
kidding.
Oh, I have a question regarding this. Additionally, Dick, did you attend any Mylan meetings regarding this? You have anything to report as liaison?
I attended the Mylan meeting and the presentation was made, and I got the sense that they don't expect to get back to Mylan for a meeting for quite some time, maybe even not for a year. So it's really incumbent upon us as the lead agency to keep Mylan involved, because the applicant is probably not going to be filling Mylan in on an ongoing basis, as far as I could tell.
Oh, definitely. And they're invited to all our meetings and
Yeah,
such.
we just gotta make sure they get their chance to say what they are concerned about.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure we will.
Well,
And
yeah, I guess my concern would be if they don't know what is happening in our meetings, then they won't know to be concerned about it. And on the other hand, if we make the applicant do it twice, we don't know if the applicant is saying the same things. I think it's difficult.
Well,
So
we do have, they are, I saw Tom, the chairman is here from Mylan. And I don't know if any other, it's hard to tell who else is here. I recognize Tom.
Could we
So,
unmute him?
well, yeah, he can, if he wants to say something. Do you have anything to say, Mr. Darby, or? You're muted at the moment. Still. Oh, there you
Okay. Yes, hi. Okay. So yeah, the only thing we've done since the meeting, and it was correct, they told us that they'd probably be a year or so around then before they got back to us. But we did schedule a on-site visit where the board is going to be going to the site, and they're going to give us a tour of like the roads and things, because we had questions about some of the roads that they were showing on the map and other things. We had a date at the end of May, but that may change to the end of June, like the last week of June instead of the last week of May. That's still up in the air. But that is the only action we're taking with regard to them, is they have agreed to give us a tour, and we're eager to go on it. So.
Very good. All right.
is that, will we be notified of that too? Because that might be something that we'd be interested in, even if it's a tour. I assume it'll be a tour of the Mylan part of the project.
Yes.
But I mean, we know these things are interdependent, I think, to some extent, or to a large extent.
I certainly don't have a problem with anybody from the Pine Plains Board coming on our tour. I mean, so that's fine. If you want to be notified about that, I can have Karen, our clerk, notify you when we get the final date approved. I don't know if the applicant would have a difficulty with that, but I don't see why they would.
They shouldn't, because I mean, it's almost an open meeting in a way, right?
Well, it's not a meeting,
Right,
we can't, we can't discuss any, we're just going to view things. We're not going to talk about anything.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've done site visits before, and it's a good idea. That's all. And I think I'd sort of like to be involved. I don't know if our chair has a different view, then.
No, if they're inviting you, absolutely. And we should, look to eventually have the same for us, for our section of the.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the project really is interdependent between the two communities, and we both ought to be involved in everything. I think it's my 2 cents.
Okay.
And the environmental review that you will be presumably be the lead agency for does encompass both the development in Mylan as well as the development in Pine Plains.
Right.
So in that sense, you are correct.
All the more so that well, and Mylan is concerned about what's going to happen. So,
Right.
And 2 feet over the border, that kind of thing. So we're all in this boat together, I guess.
Yes, I agree.
And Mr. Chair, if I may say, just for the applicant, Stuart Messinger with Chazen for the applicant, somebody said, I think I heard somebody say, as long as the applicant doesn't object, and of course we don't, everybody's welcome to go on everybody's tours, and we're more than happy to
Right.
schedule one or more tours with either board anytime. So just work either through myself or through Lisa. Happy to do it.
Okay,
Great. Okay, we'll just keep each other informed and
I just wanted to say, my name's Tom, not Donna, but this is my wife's laptop. So whatever.
I did say Tom. I did say.
Yeah. I'm not sure how to change that back, but you get the idea.
All right. Okay, so this is we're done with this project, I guess, for tonight. And
right.
the next meeting, what's the next step? So the next step, if there's no objections to us being lead agency, go ahead, Sarah.
So your next meeting is prior to the 30 days expiring. If you happen to hear back from all of the involved agencies, and I think there's about 15 or so, if you hear back from all of them before your next meeting, you can declare yourselves lead agency at that meeting. We're not anticipating that you'll be in a position to be able to do that at the June meeting. And so I think at that meeting, we were proposing that we would have a preliminary discussion about zoning. What's the not zoning, sorry, scoping. What's the purpose of scoping, and kind of walk the board through the scoping process so you sort of understand the next steps. Probably it's a very good idea to schedule a site tour. We can work with the applicant and your board on that between now and perhaps that June meeting, so we have a date that we can discuss. And then I think in the memo that we had transmitted last month, we had suggested scheduling a meeting later in June, a special meeting where you could become lead agency, adopt a positive declaration on the project, and schedule scoping sessions over multiple sessions over the summer. But we can walk the board through all of that in the next meeting.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
the applicant and Mylan people and everyone else who's here for that.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good
Thank
night.
you very
Good night,
much.
folks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Next up is Stissing Farms / Town Center. I'm trying to see who's here. That one. Oh, Ken's here now. Oh boy. Ken, did you just get here? You're muted.
Yeah, I don't think he was here for the resolution.
Oh, okay.
How's
All right,
that?
I'm sorry.
That
Ken,
better?
you got here now? I didn't miss you during the resolution vote, right? Anyway. Yeah, you're breaking up. All right. Well, I guess I don't know where to start with this. I guess the applicant, should we start with the applicant? So where he's at with the project? Who's going to be speaking? Is it you, Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, I can speak. If I can speak, I will speak. Yes, I'll speak on behalf of the project. So I'll just give everyone an update as to where we are from our prior meeting. We have had a site meeting with Ray, town engineer, and Ken, our engineer, and we did a site walk with the project. And it's my understanding, and I'll let Ray jump in here and give his opinion on how the meeting went. But we thought it went very well. We identified some areas that did need to have some work completed to it. From my perspective, they were relatively minor. We had some curbing and some sidewalks that needed to be potentially replaced due to some grading issues. And there were some areas where we had to replace some asphalt at the beginning of coming into the property. We had to mill and pave some asphalt and reset some manhole lids. And then there was a little bit of fencing that had to be installed around a detention basin. But for the most part, everything went very well. I thought the site meeting went well, and we came up with a plan. And it was my belief that the town engineer is satisfied with the inspection. But again, I won't speak for him. I'll let him provide that commentary. We're looking forward to getting started with the project. I believe we have crossed over a lot of the major hurdles which had been identified early on. And it's my belief that we are in a position to move forward, at least at this point, and get started with the project and hopefully put the get the permits issued, and then any changes that are necessary due to some uncovered items during construction would be picked up by the building department while they're performing their inspections. But again, I'll let Ray chime in on the physical inspections and how he left it with Ken Casamento on the revisions that are necessary to the site.
Thank you. So yeah, to bring the board up to speed. So we've been waiting pursuant to the last meeting. We're continuing to wait for the as-built for all of the infrastructure and existing conditions survey, which the applicant's engineer has been working on. My understanding is as of the other day that they've actually completed all their field work and they're working on the mapping currently. So that being the case, it sounds as though that should be completed in short order and submitted for our review. In the meantime, in order to get a jump on an understanding of the amount of work that and the condition that the current infrastructure is in out at the site, we did do a walkthrough and a site visit throughout the entire area. And as Mr. Reynolds has indicated, there are many minor items, nothing of significant substance that cannot be dealt with. A large part of what needs to be done is, unfortunately, because of the age of the work that's been completed and the time frame that's lapsed since that work was done, there are things that just need to be replaced because of their current condition. Some manhole lids, water valve lids, sidewalk areas. One of the larger items, and it's not a showstopper or major issue, it's just the way that the sidewalks and the binder asphalt were constructed. There just needs to be some detail that needs to be worked out on how that transition is going to take place. And so that was identified out at the site. But again, based on what our walkthrough was, there are a list of minor items that do need to be addressed. We have prepared a preliminary punch list, and we were waiting for that as-built to complete that punch list. And once that's complete, we were going to update the bond amount, or the bond calculation, excuse me, for the infrastructure, to confirm that either the amount that currently is in the hands of the town, because my understanding is that there is an account that has a dollar amount for the security for the infrastructure is currently in place, and we just want to update the numbers based on our site visit, based on the as-built, to confirm that that is adequate. And if not, then the applicant may have to add additional funds to make sure that that covers any improvements that need to be made. But generally speaking, it appears as though, and we were able to confirm, that the majority of the infrastructure is in, like the water as well as the septic and so forth. They're in there and they are completed. The health department, based on documentation that the applicant has provided, the Department of Health has signed off on those items. And so really there's surface items that need to be dealt with. Again, asphalt areas, sidewalk areas, damage to manhole covers and catch basin lids, and there's some fencing items and different things like that. But again, no showstoppers from what we had seen.
Thank you, Ray. Yeah, that was my recollection as well. And like we had mentioned when we spoke, anything needing to be replaced will absolutely be replaced. We're not talking about anything major.
Ray, just indulge me one question, a couple of questions. What is exactly the sewage treatment or septic or whatever it is? What is on that property? Like, what can you just describe that system? And
Yeah, actually, it's a septic system. So generally speaking, what takes place is the majority of the wastewater heads to a central pump station that's located in the, if you drive into the site, there's a large green area, if you would, and the road kind of wraps around it. There is a pump station that's currently there. So all of the wastewater goes through the septic tanks. They're large septic tanks located on site. Goes through the septic tank into the pump station, and then it is pumped to a conventional leach field located at the back of the property.
So near the school?
Correct. That is correct, yes.
And so what are in the manhole covers? And so I know you were talking even about repairing some of them, and like what are the manhole covers?
Yeah, so there is a conveyance system on site for the wastewater that goes from, if you recall, when you look at the site plan, there are blocks of buildings, if you would. I believe there are 4 buildings, if you would, to a block, or 4 units, my apologies, 4 units to a building. And so there's an effluent pipe that comes out of that building, and eventually it works its way over towards the septic tank and then into the pump station. Well, as it's going through the site, there are manholes that are installed at transition points. So that way, in case there's a blockage, if they can get in, they can clean out the piping and so forth with ease. And so those manholes, in many instances, those manholes are actually located in the area of existing asphalt. And unfortunately, because only the binder was installed, so that's the base layer of asphalt, the rims, the metal portions, the lids actually extended above the asphalt by approximately 1.5 inches. And over time, with plowing operations and so forth, those have been damaged. So those are the lids that we're talking about having to be replaced. Similarly, the situation with water valves, again, those would have to be replaced. And the applicant has indicated that they are aware of that and willing to take those on.
Great. Thank you for that explanation. How about, do any of the members have any questions about the infrastructure of the project for Ray or the applicant here before we turn to Warren and ask questions?
I had one question. There was reference in the previous resolutions on this years ago about a phased-in construction plan. Is that part of the procedure that we're going to be seeing?
That is, yes, that's one of the recommendations that we had actually talked about in the field for 2 purposes. Number one, for stormwater, to make sure that at no time during the construction that they are going to disturb an area greater than 5 acres at any given point. And secondly, for building permits and so forth, that they identify exactly how and where the construction is to take place. And the applicant has initially indicated that they plan on finishing the buildings at the rear of the property, located on top of the hill, and then basically working their way out of the site, if you would. Once that's completed and the construction is completed, then they would put their top course of asphalt and so forth. It doesn't make sense to do any of that now, obviously, because as construction vehicles are going to go over that asphalt, the existing asphalt, it's going to continue to, perhaps cause damage to that. So it makes sense for that asphalt to be done towards the very end. But we have talked about one of the next submissions that has to be made is that phasing plan.
Thanks.
Hey, Warren, so what do you report on what's going on from your end?
Okay. So I made a list of items that we need to consider. And first on my list was the status of the punch list and the as-built from Ray. So I'm assuming we're going to have that soon, but we don't have that yet. That's the most crucial document or documents that we'll need. I just want to confirm with the planning board that there is no need in the planning board's mind at this point for any age restrictions on this development. Going back to 2005, when this was originally approved, when we did our environmental review, there were age restrictions placed upon the project as a environmental mitigation. And that has changed over the years with the multiple resubmissions and requests for amendments. And it was a more serious problem when the project was going to be a rental project. Now it's going to remain as a condominium project. So just going to want a confirmation from the board when we take final action on the amended site plan resolution, that no one sees any need for any age restrictions or any other restrictions on the property other than the covenants and restrictions that would go along with the condominium. We don't have to answer that tonight, but that's one of the issues that will have to be resolved.
Warren, can I just ask a question about that?
I'm sorry.
I just want to ask a question about that
Sure.
before we move on. So at the time they removed the age restrictions in these past resolutions, did we consider, I mean, did that process go, I mean, did we have to consider that then? Because we thought it was to mitigate impact in the beginning, then we must have said now it doesn't and made a declaration on that or something, correct? On that action?
Yeah, if we're going to remove, and most of those restrictions have been removed over the course of the resolutions. There were a number of resolutions that were passed by the planning board at the request of the applicant. Yeah, as part of our final action on this, I'm envisioning that we're going to be doing an amended site plan approval on this. One of the issues will be that we'll make some sort of declaration that we see no need for any age restrictions or any further environmental review of the impacts of this condominium plan. So that will be addressed in the final resolution of the board.
We have to, Warren, do we have to consider having any kind of a public hearing on that? Just because there were issues about, noise and stuff like that from neighbors back in the day, as I recall.
Yeah, I don't remember what the specific issues were. Yeah, I guess it might have been noise. I don't see any reason for a public hearing, but the board could decide that.
Mm-hmm. It was either noise or potential noise that people imagined might happen once you had families with children there instead of old people, which there was neighbors whose property was right, contiguous with this property. But if that were, we may be past that point. I just raise it.
I think we're beyond that at this point, and
Okay.
a lot of things have changed since that initial determination. But it will be addressed in the final resolution one way or the other.
Okay, good.
If it's condominium, we're not going to be putting any, you normally don't put any restrictions on the condominium, on a normal market rate condominium. The one thing I am going to, a couple of things I'll need from the applicant's attorney, and I've spoke to him about that. I will need I couldn't find an actual copy of the filed submittal to the Attorney General's office for the offering plan. So I'm going to want that, and there's an amended filing that they're in the process of doing. I'm going to want to see that, but I'll take that up with the attorney for the project. One of the issues on my list was the phasing plan. We've already discussed that. I will need to know from Ray how he envisions that was one of the items that we've always requested that was never provided in conjunction with the project. There will be a need for some sort of phasing plan in the final resolution. The performance bond, as Ray indicated, we can't determine whether the amount that we have now, which I think is around $184,000, will be sufficient to guarantee the completion of the infrastructure. If it is, then that will remain in place. If it isn't, it has to be supplemented. We are going to have to revise the security agreement. It was kind of a novel security agreement where it's a actual account that's Stissing Bank. So the owner, ultimate owner of the account, will have to be changed to the new owner of the property. I want to make sure that that's been transferred. And we're going to need a revised security agreement to secure the performance bond. I don't know. Ray was assume you're going to address the landscaping plan in
the punch list, correct? Yeah.
Okay.
So the landscaping was going to be part of that punch list.
Okay. What are the? Obviously, there'll be, if there whatever other items you have, you know, we're going to want to see that. We are going to need some new dates for the completion of the infrastructure on this project. We can't set those dates until we reach a point of passing the amended resolution. So I think that we can move forward, hopefully, towards at least having, if not in place, a draft amended resolution at the next meeting, or discussion as to all the provisions in the amended resolution to pass at a subsequent meeting, if all goes well and proceeds. So if you have any questions.
Well, I just wanted those, perhaps I'm forgetting, but did you guys send, Ray and Warren, did you send us to the board the list that you guys are working off of here, this punch list and the items that you're looking for, Warren? Did you provide that to us?
If Ray wants to send me something now, that's fine. But ultimately, what he needs is the as-built plans. He's going to need a punch list, which is essentially the list of all the items that remain to be completed for the infrastructure. I don't see any reason why that has to be supplied now, unless Ray wants us to look at it.
Yeah, actually, I had prepared a very preliminary one based on our site visit with the applicant, but I was awaiting that as-built to finalize it. Rather than having multiple versions floating around, I would rather
it'll get confusing.
Yeah. If it's okay with the board, I'd rather just wait till I get that as-built in hand. Again, the applicant and their engineer, we reviewed those items, so it's very clear to them what needs to be done. But again, I will provide one by all means to the planning board, but I was just waiting for that as-built, so that way it's one complete list.
All right. Does any of the board members have any questions? I guess you guys are very thorough.
So for the applicant, if Ken gets me that as-built, it sounded as though, when I spoke to him, it sounded as though that they were working on it. So if I get that in a week or so, I should be able to turn around the information I need to the planning board, including a new bond estimate and so forth. So that way Warren can prepare any resolution with any, additional information. So if I get that in about a week or so, I can get that turned around for the next meeting.
Okay, yeah, if I can, if I get it in time, and at least I can do a preliminary draft of a resolution for consideration at the next meeting.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you, everyone from Reynolds Associates. Mr. Reynolds?
Actually, Chairman, this is John First. I'm the attorney for the applicant. If I could just, nice to meet everybody. I don't want to take up much of your time, but I did just want to note to Warren that, I'll absolutely get him copies of what he needs as far as the original submittal. And when the updated submission to the AG's office is made, I'll certainly provide him a copy with that once it's finalized and submitted. With respect to the age restrictions, I believe, and I'll double check, I believe the last resolution that was passed in September of 2014 already eliminated the age restriction requirement. but I'll certainly go through that resolution again to confirm. So I'm not sure if the planning board actually needs to address that issue again. It sounds like it was already addressed in 2014, but I will certainly follow up with Warren.
Yeah, to be honest, I was confused. If I remember correctly, on this resolution that they passed, I think it was amended by the planning board after I prepared it, and there are a couple of pages that seemed to be repeats and made it a little confusing. So it wasn't clear to me that the age restriction was completely removed, but we can go over that. I don't see it as a big issue. I'm not terribly concerned about it.
Great. So thank
We
you very much, and
definitely-
I'm sure the engineer will work on the items that Ray needs.
Whatever that last resolution we did on this was, we had a public hearing about it, and I thought it was the age restricted. Steve, do you remember? You seem to be nodding before.
I thought we took the age restrictions off as well,
And we had a public hearing, and people came
Right.
and talked. Yeah.
but it was a long time ago.
Right. We can confirm that for the board, but I'll work with Warren during the next couple of weeks.
I'm not sure I recall a public hearing on the last resolution. There've been so many resolutions over the years.
I can even tell you who came and what they said about. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
night.
So
Thank you very much.
No
Good
problem.
next up is the Capablano site plan review. I don't know, maybe, I guess, the applicant can tell what's going on, what decisions they made or whatever, regarding, the possibility of variance, et cetera, and then we'll take it from there with the, consultants. So whoever's speaking for the applicants, I don't know, unmute yourself.
Great. David, do you want to start?
Be happy to. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board. Thank you for your time tonight. We have Joyce and Chris Capuano, the clients for the project, here with us. Myself, I'm David Burke, the architect on the project. And we also have Dean Kent joining us, the contractor on the project as well. If you wouldn't mind, I will share my screen and just quickly give you an update on where we are. Are you all seeing that? Okay, just to refresh your memory, you know the property, 3032 Church Street, and that's obviously from the road. And then this is the site in question, taking photographs looking north towards Church Street. Last month, we showed you this plan, and we discussed the potential of going for a variance for the garage. We have decided not to go for a variance, so we're waiving that. And we have done some work in the meantime on siting the septic tanks and the septic field. So the new plan, now, sorry for the shift, but now looks like this. And I can explain it to you here. We have the new home in the rear lot located just here with a pool. And we've slid these two back. We have maintained all the trees on the site, and we have located the septic and absorption fields in this area here, consolidated for both properties. So they've been sized by the engineer, who is not with us tonight, to handle both the new cottage in the back, as well as the proposed home to Church Street. And I think, unless I missed anything, Joyce, that's pretty much what we have for an update. We'd like to go for conditional approval tonight on this septic layout. And I'm going to hand it over to Dean to talk about a meeting that was had with the Board of Health, the and the soil tests and other discussions. Dean, can you take it away?
Yes, thank you, David. Yes, we met at the end of the month with Jim Teed, who's the senior public health engineer. We did all our deep tests, we did our perks. And as I was actually told by others that are in the meeting tonight, the soil there is just incredible. So from a septic perspective, it looked really good. The deep tests were really good. The perks were really good. We have all the information. Dan Proper from Proper and O'Leary right now is doing the design. He's looking to be done with his design by mid-June. And we would then, be giving it to Mr. T to pass his judgment on the layout and the conditions that we present to him. So, but the soil itself looked extremely good. I was kind of jealous of anything I've seen in a long time in Dutchess County. So really nice material. So we should be proceeding and we'll look to close on it, by the end of the month and get Board of Health approval. End of June. Questions?
So, well, I have does any of the members have any questions regarding the plan here, or Ray, if you have any questions, also you can speak up.
No, I don't have any questions. I just had a comment based on the submittal that was made. So the submission that was made identifies the plan as a sketch plan. So I just referred back the fact that the applicant's engineers should be preparing, or the architect should be preparing, a site plan that conforms with section 275-62 of the zoning code as far as the plan requirements, rather than just working off the sketch.
We're, as Dean said, the engineer is currently finalizing that site plan to include all this information.
Good.
The garage, is that gone then?
The garage will be removed, yes.
And what about the main house? What's happening with that?
There's no plans for the main house. It will remain for the time being.
What does that mean? Like what, for the time being, until
We have nothing to show tonight on that home, and no particular plans for it.
So the thought was that we would have a cottage so that we would be able to be on site when we do restore the house. But because of the kind of current environment with everyone very busy, we didn't think we would be able to do both at the same time. So we sort of thought about this as a delay for perhaps the fall to start to discuss the house, the main house. But we're looking forward to restoring it in its likeness. And, hopefully we'll have a cottage that we can be in so that we can be there for the restoration of the main house.
And the urgency for the cottage is, we have a farm in Red Hook, and it's owned by 3 people. And the farmhouse has become really overcrowded for 3 families at this point. And basically, we need somewhere to live in the interim.
Oh, we'd like
so
to have a place.
that's why we're anxious to get the cottage up.
Right.
But so has any more determinations about the structural integrity of the main house been made, not been worked on since we last spoke?
That's right.
So worst case scenario, that house can't be saved. You're just going to rebuild something right where it is?
Yes. In its likeness.
Yes. Can we
need the sketch? Do we need the sketch plan before we schedule a public hearing?
Well, what happens if they decide not to rebuild? What if?
So that's not our, when we purchased the property, our intention was first to restore that house and to have it be as much a gem for Pine Plains as it was way back when it was first built. So our goal is the main house. We just thought it was a lot to take on initially, and we did want to have a separate small accessory dwelling. We have 2 adult sons, and we thought long-term it would be a really nice opportunity just to have a separate space. And we thought in the interim, it would really serve our purpose well. But the main house is the main reason we purchased the property. We think it's lovely. Unfortunately, it is really, I mean, I don't think we could stay there, frankly. It's, you know, it's been described to me as that the basement walls are bowing. We've had 2 engineers or 3, Dean, come in and look at the property. So we will do our best to restore what we can, but we don't anticipate that would be the case. We have budgeted for the entire property to be restored. We have taken out the garage because we think it would be more in tune with what the board and the planning board is interested in seeing, and it would be fine with us because we want also not to make this a huge property, but to just serve our purposes and be part of the community. So that's how it sort of unfolded. And so far we're really pleased with all of the tests that have taken place, and just really excited to get underway.
And I would just add to that, that any change to the existing house would certainly come before the board under a separate application.
What, Vicky, go ahead. Can we
Well,
get,
I'm
can
just-
we take off, wait, pause 1 second. Can we just take off the screen sharing? I don't think we need to look at the sketch right now,
Oh, sure.
please. All right, go ahead, Vicky. What were you gonna say?
Well, I guess I'm just a little, I don't want to say nervous, but if they halfway through this project, if they, you know, if the house is not salvageable, or are we going to end up with nothing in the front? I mean, are you really, will you rebuild something out there, I guess? I mean, just makes me just question your, you know, you haven't even really, well, I guess you have, but I don't know. This is not, to me, this is not a dwelling in the backyard. I just have questions about it, that's all. Because it will change the whole dynamic if you don't rebuild.
Absolutely, and we would never
So-
have taken this on
So
without.
we have a townhouse in New York City. We've renovated.
I don't really care. I'm more concerned about Pine Plains and I don't, sorry.
I'm mentioning that to you because you need to understand our commitment to historic preservation. It's a townhouse that's been preserved to the T with curved glass windows, original detail, no visible extensions that you can see from the street. So we are committed to historic preservation. We understand what the atmosphere of that street is. We would never, ever interfere with what that atmosphere is. We would fit into that street perfectly. You will never know that the building we put up didn't exist 150 years ago. And
Well,
so
we want it to look much better, but we also want to satisfy you, and I don't want you to be uncomfortable in any way. So tell us what we can do. We were here last month to discuss what the path forward was, and we tried, you know, to do our best to kind of go down that path. And, you know, frankly, I mean, I can tell you a little more if you're interested in learning more, but we were looking initially for farmland and we still are looking for farmland. So it's not a budgetary issue. And we, like Chris said, I mean, there would be no reason for us to put up a small cottage and leave what I think is becoming it's not as aesthetically pleasing as what we hope to put up. But if you think it's appropriate, we will do whatever you think, whatever would make you feel comfortable, because we are totally comfortable that that building will be the next thing that we address. We have, we're.
That's fine. If you're that committed to it, that's fine. I did not get that feeling at the last meeting. That house was not discussed. And you did make a comment about the foundation. I went back on the tape. You did make a comment about the foundation, and you said you didn't know if the house was salvageable or not.
I don't think it is.
So, and that made me question because of what you're putting in the back and what you wanted to do. Then if you were not going to rebuild, or if you were not going to whatever.
Your questions are absolutely reasonable. So
it would not, what the dwelling in the back then does not meet any of our standards in town, any of the our zoning or anything.
Actually,
at that point on Main Street.
So that is another consideration which David can speak to. I mean, what we have said is that we want whatever is visible to this from the street to speak to the front of the house. It is going to be something that hopefully I think we have high confidence that David will execute that in the design, but that's equally important to us, that whatever you see from the street will look very much like something. Can't call it a carriage house because we're really not putting up a carriage house, but it will, the initial design looks almost barn shaped, if you will, with just it's not going to go above what the
I've seen that house for years, so I know what it looked like before. So
the main house.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was referring to.
I was referring
to the cottage.
I don't.
Well, the alternative is if the Capablano's had not bought this property and somebody else who was less interested in historic preservation did, well, maybe just sit there until the building falls down, or somebody would try to rent out the building to be a rental, and then it would fall down, and we'd have a fallen down building on the site. So that wouldn't help the town at all. So I mean, it sounds like that.
It sounds like now. It did not sound like that at the last meeting.
Well, but even if they had to build something new and different, if they're entitled to build something new and different, then we would have to deal with what their intentions were. But we've heard what they say their intentions are, and it might not have made a difference legally if they just said, well, we're going to put a different kind of building in the front. It's not really. Is it that connected legally? Somebody else needs to tell me that, either.
Well, we do have a comprehensive plan, and we do have certain things, how far on those streets where the buildings can be built.
But so they'd be subject to that regardless of what they told us tonight. They would be bound by
Peter,
that.
my only concern was at the last meeting, they never even discussed that house. They never.
Okay.
And the only comment was they didn't know if they were going to be able to salvage that corner, the basement. And I started thinking, well, what are they going to do? Just tear it down and they'll have the house in the back? That's all. I was just wanted to know what their plans were with the main house.
Now, I'm not criticizing you're asking
and
a
now
question
they have
at all.
explained that, and I'm happy with that.
Fine. I'm not criticizing you're asking a question, Vicky. It's a perfectly reasonable question. I just wanted to put in my 2 cents of what I thought was going to happen. That's all. I'm not criticizing the question in any way.
I kind of think that the concept of what they're going to do, if they build a cottage in the back, it's really a good way to get that front house dealt with. because the front house is a mess. And it would be great to have somebody on site who cares about it. And that's really the best way to deal with that kind of a project. I mean, if you can be there, and hopefully they be there most of the time, that's the fastest way to get the other project done.
This is Dean Kent. I mean, this is not my first pass with these clients. I mean, I worked on the historic barn in Red Hook. I know what they were like. I know how many trips we went to Gentwood Products to get the material they wanted, to get the look they wanted, the time to take down the old beams, to save the old beams. So I'm very familiar with them and how they work and how they think. So I can only tell you from my experience, that, when they say they want that house to look correct in the front, to replicate the way it should support the town look, I'm totally comfortable with what they want to do and in the reality that they have the means to do it. So they're very serious about doing this. We've spent a lot of time crawling through that little house, scratching our heads, trying to figure out what we could do or what we couldn't do. I've had discussions with Drew. I've brought in engineers, and we're still crawling through it. But I can only tell you, for what it's worth, that they're committed to doing it. And this is not their first go. They did a tremendous job designing a barn in Red Hook, if you ever get a chance to see it, and replicating the old look inside the barn, and spent countless hours with Chris going around finding materials and trying to come up with a way to restore it, or not restore it. It was actually a brand new barn, to make it look like the old barn. It was a heck of an effort. And
where, if it isn't an invasion of privacy, where exactly in Red Hook is it? And feel free to not answer.
It's the old Fraley farm in Red Hook. It's one of the oldest farms in America. Dave Fraley, basically was the owner of that farm. It came from his parents and generations. And the barn was basically, we took it down piece by piece. And I can only tell you that Chris, made me work hard saving this piece of lumber and that piece of lumber and this, hinge and that hinge, and then trying to replicate it and find everything we could find to put it back up. We put it totally back up with a brand new foundation, brand new structure. The inside, if you go in, you'll think it's the old barn. You will not know the difference. Very difficult to tell. So I know what their commitment level is, and I just wanted to share that with you. This is, I think Chris can tell you better than I, but that was probably a 3-year effort trying to get that done and get it to where we wanted it to be and to look the way it should look. So
only a 3-year effort. The name of the farm is Rose Hill.
So it was quite an effort, and it really came out quite well. So I know what they want to do in the front, and I know they'll do it.
And I'll just quickly add to that to say that in my working with them over the last several months, they have a dedication to quality, to natural materials, and to doing something that's definitely in kind with the local neighborhood. So I feel there's little to no risk here for you all, that they're going to do something that's respectful and done with quality.
Any other members have any question of the board? For the applicant. I have some. If not, I would just move to somewhat more mundane issues with this. Is the we seem to have, I don't know who's going to comment on this, maybe Warren. So what's happened is the Department of Health seems to have changed things slightly. We've always done these applications where we wait for the Department of Health and, or we say pending their approval. They seem to want an approval from us before going ahead now. This is the second application where this has happened, where they've asked us for conditional approval or a preliminary approval before they'll go ahead approving the septic. So what's up with this, and how come? And how do we do this?
Well,
if I may, actually, what they're requesting normally is the fact that the planning board has at least gone through the seeker process. And again, That's always been one of their requirements, but it does seem more recently that they are pressing that issue with all the planning boards in the county. So they want to make sure that the planning boards have at least reviewed the project and at least provided for a negative declaration prior to the health department moving forward with their approval.
Correct.
That goes back to my question. Do we need the sketch plan before we schedule a public hearing? Or what do you think, Ray? Do you need to see that before we do
I
that
think you
hearing?
should, yeah, I mean, you've done it with other applicants. And
Right.
so I don't think that there's any reason to change. It sounds like the applicant's engineer is working on that. So hopefully they would have that submitted prior to the next meeting. The planning board can then review that. Hopefully at that point, schedule a public hearing for the July timeframe. And based on the applicant's indication that their engineer is going to be submitting in the June timeframe, as far as the septic approval will probably be coming in the September timeframe. So therefore, the planning board's approval will be coming well ahead of that. So it's not as though the planning board will be tying up the applicant.
Hey, Dean, can you just comment on the message you got from the Board of Health at the meeting and the time frame that we were expecting to receive?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand tonight, because these processes seem to change, but I have a note in front of me from James Teaton, and he's saying exactly what Ray said. He says, let me just get it in front of me here. He says, P.S. Is the planning board zoning board approval required with this project? If so, we will not be able to approve the plan until preliminary approval is granted by those agencies, and if the secret determination has been made. However, I can review for errors if you want. So he is looking for preliminary approval ahead of time. So I'm trying to understand in my mind, we're designing a septic, we're going to get his approval. And I'm not sure I understand why we have to have that plan done to get preliminary, unless preliminary has something to do with just a public hearing.
Well, again, it's common for that item associated with preliminary approval, and as he's also indicated as far as a secret determination, to be one of their comments. They will not provide a final letter of approval until that's dealt with. But again, based on the past history with the Department of Health and their timing of how long it takes projects to get approved, you'll be looking at 2 to 3 months. The planning board will be done with its process prior to that.
I can only tell you, in working with Mr. Teed and being on site with him and with his workload, I'm looking for him to be able to approve the septic by the end of June.
Good luck.
And well, I can only tell you, Ray, that's a discussion I've had with him 5 times. He's extremely responsive. This is not a huge, complicated system.
And that will be a record for Dutchess County Department of Health. And I encourage that. So that's wonderful.
I'm familiar with doing septics, and the one that we did previously took many, many months. You're correct. But this one is pretty straightforward. The soil, there's no reason for any raised systems. So this is a pretty straightforward system. We're only talking a couple of laterals here, 50 feet long. So
I don't disagree. I don't mean to be argumentative, but the health department only proceeds in one manner as far as their timing. And
I know the players. I do a lot of septics. I won't mention names, but in this case, I think we have a shot at getting it done by the end of June.
So can I weigh in on this? Because I have a bigger problem, unfortunately. The problem that I have is that accessory dwelling requires a special use permit and site plan approval, but it also requires that the principal dwelling be owner occupied for the duration of the special use permit. So in light of what we've been told tonight, I'm not sure how the applicant is going to get around that requirement.
We did that on a couple others, though, Warren.
What?
We did that. I know that was an issue, and we had that on a couple other matters, just as in the past couple of months, and we agreed to let them build the accessory unit so they could live there while they were building the new houses. They weren't
That was
renovating.
the one on Prospect Hill.
Yeah.
One on
that's right.
Yeah,
Prospect Hill and another one
you know,
someplace
I don't
else.
remember how we handled that, but it's got to be, that's not the understanding I received tonight. That it could be that this property will not be occupied. And it's not a problem with the site plan, but it's a problem with the special use permit. That has to be owner occupied for the duration of the special use permit.
No.
If we,
Wait,
I don't
Warren,
remember.
which-
Let me
which-
finish.
which-
Let me finish. Let me finish.
Which building are you talking about being owner occupied?
Pardon?
Which building are you
front
talking
house.
about being owner?
The principal building has to be owner occupied.
Okay.
So I don't remember how we dealt with it in the other case, but you're not bound, you know, I don't remember the facts of that case, but that is a problem for this application. And
That's what Vicky
the
was saying.
applicant is going to have to come up with some kind of solution to propose to the planning board. It may require an application to the zoning board. I have dealt with it before where we've allowed the accessory building to be occupied, but we did that in Northeast, and it was subject to a approval by the zoning board, which required them to build and occupy the house within a set period of time. You know, that may be a solution. It's not my job to come up with solutions for the applicant. But that's
Right,
the
but
problem.
we just did this twice. Once on Prospect Hill, once, where was the other one, Steve? Up on by Rockwell's property, right? Wasn't that that way?
Well, wasn't it the Potter property on Johnny Cake? They had a buyer, and I think
Yes.
that fell through.
Yeah, it ended up going through, but we did say the same thing. They were gonna build a house behind.
They wanted to build a house behind one. It was 2 lots, and I think neither of the houses that are currently existing were going to be considered occupiable by them because they in fact wanted to restore them. So it was the same situation, and it was very, very preliminary because even the deal didn't go through, so it never got to an approval. But we rendered we tried
The
to
fact that it may
encourage
have been
them.
done in another case doesn't nullify the requirement of the statute. So you're going to have to come up with a solution.
But okay, but why would the solution be different or having to? We didn't do.
Because first of all, I don't recall exactly what the facts were in the other cases and how we dealt with it. But the fact that we dealt with that the planning board dealt with the problem in one way, in one case, doesn't mean that you're bound to apply it in the same case to different factual situations.
Right,
I'm
but-
concerned about the fact that this property, the front building may never be occupied. Now, if they.
Not what they said. That's not what they said, Warren. They said the front property may have to be either it's going to be renovated or it's going to be torn down and rebuilt in a historical fashion.
Okay, well, that's going to have to be specified as I don't remember whether we referred it to the ZBA for a decision or whether it was made by the planning board. It's going to be part of your decision that has to be accounted for, because you can't just allow it to happen and approve an accessory dwelling where the principal dwelling is not owner occupied. I mean, it's up to you. I'm just telling you what the law is.
I think on the Prospect Hill one, we did put some kind of a time limit that they had to have the main house done. And then in that case, there was no main house whatsoever to restore or do anything else with. It was going to be new construction.
I think I wasn't involved in that because I represented is that the Potter's property?
No, that's not the
Oh.
Potter's property.
Oh.
That's, I forget the name of the owners for that one, but that was within the last year, I think, or 2 years at the max.
Yeah, I'd
outside.
have to look at how we dealt with that, but it's
was
an
last
issue
like
that we're
year.
going to have to resolve.
Let me take a risk and ask a question. Suppose we determine the front building is not salvageable and it's down. What happens then?
Then there have to be they have to be torn down within a certain period of time.
But what happens then to proceeding with the cottage in the back of the building in the
That
front?
becomes the principal residence.
And so then it's no longer an issue.
That's correct.
Well, then, but
No.
That's not the outcome we want.
No,
I know.
we still want to put the building up in the front. Don't misunderstand me.
Yeah, we don't want to have encourage people to tear things down.
No.
Let us not forget that we're here to improve this property. and the house on the road. So I think we should be thinking more in terms of how we can facilitate approvals so that
Thank you.
we
No. You have to come up, with a proposal to the planning board. We don't solve
We
your
certainly
legal issue.
will, and I'm not putting it on you to come up with any kind of ideas. I'm just saying, in this context, let's remember that we're here to improve that house on the road and to get the Capanos into the site. So ultimately, the town is improved. I just don't want to forget that.
I think we all appreciate that. And if we were making things up, if we had the freedom to make things up, we might be acting differently, but we appreciate what the Capanos are trying to do. At least I think everybody does. But our counsel, who is very experienced, is telling us that there's a legal problem here. And, I'm a lawyer. I happen to think we are sort of a judicial body here, even though, and there is at least one other lawyer on the board. And we're bound by the law, and we can't do things that we might want to do if our lawyer advises us and that we have to do it a certain way. So we're kind of bound by that. And that's why Warren is chiming in here. He's doing what we pay him not very much money to do. I don't think, but
not enough money.
Well, it's enough, but it's not a lot. Well, I shouldn't say that. It might not be enough. I'm sorry. I don't mean to comment on your fees. But one thing I will say, I've been on this board for almost 10 years, mostly as an alternate until recently. And Mr. Raplansky is an extremely experienced land use lawyer. So we have to, and he also is the attorney to the town and to this board, and we have to listen to him, unfortunately. And he's not trying to be obstructionist. He's doing his job, which is to tell us what the law.
Remember, you're going to have a public hearing on this. And
I'm certainly
if you have a neighbor that comes in and said, that's not the law, you can't approve it, what are you going to do at that point? You've got to.
Well, I'm not questioning, I'm certainly not questioning anybody's authority or their, their experience and skill. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying, having served on planning boards before myself, I just feel like the intent here is for improvement and to give the town what they want. So if that means that we need to be creative about the way that we satisfy the law and guarantee that we will improve that home on the street in a certain period of time, then let's talk about that.
So I would say people have said there has been precedence for this same type of activity in at least 2, I understand, prior applications. Perhaps you can share what the creative situations were so that we can model our proposal to you that it might fit a similar situation. Then you would have no problem since there is precedence.
First of all, there's no precedent in planning and zoning cases. But it's not our job to come up with a solution. You have to come up with a solution and propose it to the board.
So
that's your job as the applicant. And if you want to look at it's very insulting when I'm talking and you're shaking your head, because I didn't do that when you were talking. I waited till you're finished and I told you what my legal opinion was. So you're going to have to solve this problem. It's not up to us to find a creative solution for your problem, as much as the planning board would like to see this happen.
One of the questions that I had when we first discussed this was.
I'm having trouble hearing. If you could talk louder.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so one of the questions I had when we started this process was, do we need to take down the house? There have been questions about how stable it is. And we took the path or decided that it would be preferable to have the house there as opposed to having what I've been told is there would have to be, what kind of fence is it, Dean? A fence.
Well,
right?
yeah, actually the foundation of the house is not that large, but we'd have to fence that off, once the house was down until we put in a new foundation.
So our thought was that it would be preferable to leave it as is, but so I understand we have to come up with a solution, but if we come back and say, okay, in order for us to build that accessory dwelling, which is the easier path to take so that we have a place to live while we remodel the other house or rebuild the other house, if taking it down, if we come back to you and say, well, we'll have to take it down and put a fence up, and we won't probably be able to rebuild that until next year, is that going to be preferable to you as a board?
Can't we just look up what we wrote on what we said on the Prospect Hill one?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Kate. We're gonna look at what we did on that one. We'll circulate it around.
Can't Drew, I mean, is there some, maybe Drew could come, I don't know, maybe Drew might have something he could add.
Well, the minutes of the meetings where we decided both Prospect Hill and Johnny Cake Hollow, the Potter property, which was, that latter one wasn't exactly a decision because it was so preliminary, but the fact remains there were minutes and those are public records. So anybody should be able to read what we said, whether regardless.
And you can look at the resolution that we passed. I mean, it's it's Prospect Hill. It was like June of last year, right? I think that's when it was.
Yeah, they're just doing all of it now.
July 20th was the resolution.
Okay, there you go.
We gave the people 2 years to build the new house.
Thank you.
Is that what we did in Prospect Hill?
Yes.
Yeah.
Voila, that's the solution. Yeah.
And I think, all right, I want to gain control of the meeting again here. This is, so we have a couple of things. So that, yes, that has to be worked out as far as like what the creative solution is around that. In the past, we did not send it to the zoning board during that process. We just had that solution with that time requirement where they actually built a whole new house and then they were going to live in that and then built another house. And while it's not precedent, I have a feeling the board, hate to speak for everyone, but from everyone, what everyone said, would be amenable to that in this situation with someone who is interested in preserving or rebuilding or whatever they're going to end up doing with the main house and adding to our town in the way they seem to want to. And as long as there are protections in place for the town and make sure there's nothing that we don't end up with something like Vicky was concerned about then in my mind, the board's going to be amenable to that. And we just have to figure out the way forward. We're all working together and get there. We know where they want to go, and we have a pretty good idea where the board wants to let them go. And I don't think it's outside of our, it's not what we did there, and what in this instance it would be that out of bounds or something like that, where we're doing something where we're creating laws or etc. I think in a reasonable person would think it's something reasonable to be done with someone's property. Anyway, so we'll work. They will work on that and propose the solution. They'll look at what we did in the past. We'll communicate with each other internally as the board and consultants. I guess the sketch plan has to be done up. So we have to schedule the public hearing once we have that plan, or can we schedule it?
They have to submit a sketch plan. Sketch plan has to be approved, and then you have to schedule a public hearing on the special use permit, and you'd be doing the public hearing on the site plan as well.
Well, when you said sketch, so it's a site, but they have to have a site plan, not a sketch plan.
I'm sorry. What?
Is there a difference here? Ray was saying that there's a difference, right? It needs an actual site
Yeah,
plan.
in your statute, you have a procedure for approval of a sketch plan, and then it goes to the site plan.
Okay. So there's a chance we might have another meeting before the next one because of some other issues. So in my mind, if you guys can come up with that within 2 weeks from today, you have a good chance of us then scheduling a public hearing fairly soon. Otherwise, again, it would have to wait till June, and then it would be the July meeting. All right. Is there anything else on this that they have to do, Ray or Warren? No.
Well, the next step is to get the site plan in and get it to Ray as soon as possible. And we'll take a
So
look.
now what about what the Department of Health is looking for from us?
Well, again, that would happen after, once the planning board moves forward with the seeker determination.
Right, which was once we get
And
the
then
site.
holding a public hearing.
Do we have a part one of the EAF?
I'm not sure. I don't. Do you guys know?
Yeah,
did
we
you
we
submit
can't do a seeker without a part one of the.
Did you guys submit a part one of the EAF? I don't have it in front of me right now. I
Okay.
don't have the application.
Yeah, they
So let's make
they
sure we
have to
our-
they have to do that.
I believe we may have for the last meeting. I believe we might have. I think. I don't
Well,
know.
let's just make sure you have and resend it or whatever, bring it to our attention. All right, so that's what we got to do, or you got to do.
So just to clarify, because I'm not really clear, there have been, so you would like us to come back with a plan for whether we would, I'm not clear because what you've done in the past does not necessarily mean that you would do that in the future. So I guess, should we have more than one plan? Like we could take the front house down, or we would leave the house up. What is it that?
Okay, so Joyce, if I could just jump in here.
Thank you.
No, don't worry, no worries. First of all, I just want to clarify that a part one was in fact submitted before the last meeting. So you have that on record.
We do have it.
Okay.
I have it in my email anyway.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dick. The second thing I'd like to ask you is, judging from the plan that you see on your screen now, is there anything else you need from us other than the fact that we would remove the word sketch?
Well,
Yes, you need to go, your engineer needs to go through, as I pointed out previously, the engineer needs to go to the zoning code, take a look at section 275-62 that outlines all the requirements of the items that need to be included with a site plan drawing.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. and I think that-
It's pretty straightforward.
That's fair enough. And I did get that email a week or so ago. So that's, we will make sure we do that. Okay, then with that, I think our intention is to simply confirm that all of those from code 27562 is included in our site plan, resubmit this. We can probably do that in the next 48 hours and then be on the docket or the agenda for the meeting in 2 weeks.
If there is one.
Okay.
Yeah, to be clear, that's an optional one. It's not set yet.
Okay, at that point, the way I understand it is that you would rule on either a conditional approval or not, and set up
You have to have a public hearing. Hold a public hearing.
But you would set the public hearing based on your approval of the plan when you review it next meeting.
No, we would look at that it's satisfying the statute, that we can now move ahead and set a public hearing. And then, Warren, we would have to wait till after the hearing to make our declaration, correct?
You would have to conduct your, no, you mean
No.
your secret declaration?
We could do that before?
You can do that at any time during the application process. Usually you do it after the public hearing, because if there are comments made on the environmental impacts of the project, you want to take that into consideration. But you don't have to wait. Secret is just done at the earliest stage possible in the application process. But normally it's done at the time of the public hearing.
And theoretically, we could even have a conditional resolution available at that time, right?
Yeah, just give me the time sequence again. So
So they come up with the site plan as per the regulations.
that has to be approved by the planning board.
Right, but we're not
You have to have your
approve-
sketch
we have
plan
to-
approval by the planning board.
We don't
And
approve
then
that.
set it down for a public hearing with the submission of a final.
Oh, we approve it
Site plan.
before the public hearing? Is that what you're saying?
You approve the site plan after the conduct of the public hearing. You'll also approve or disapprove the special use permit at that time. There are two applications.
Yeah, but the public hearing has to go first. That's generally the way.
Yes.
You cannot give any approvals for the special permit without a public hearing. If it was just a site plan approval without the requirement of a public hearing, you could waive the public hearing. You wouldn't have to have it.
Yeah, okay.
But since you're gonna have a public hearing for the site plan, you're gonna have, for the special permit, you're gonna have it for the site plan.
But this could happen once the public hearing is closed. We could do all the rest of that in the same meeting.
That's right.
Correct.
In the interest of time, and I understand there's plenty, but would it be possible to set a public hearing based on this plan and then review the final prior to the public hearing?
Ray, we do not have a completed site plan in front of us.
That's correct. Yeah, it does not meet the requirements set forth in the zoning code as far as section 275-61. So therefore the application is not complete.
Fair enough.
Until the planning board has a complete application, it cannot take action on it.
Call you later. Yeah, the problem is that when you set a public hearing, the public has to be able to review all the documentation and comment on it if they want at the public hearing. So everything has to be in order before you schedule the public hearing.
Understood. Okay, I get it.
Well, I guess I'm still wondering how we address the, well, I guess you're saying that it's up to us to address the non-occupancy in whatever way we see fit. Or propose to.
Something.
Okay, can we unscreen share again, please?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and you guys look at that, look at what we did. We'll also communicate internally here, and then it'll go from there. But I would familiarize yourself with that application from last year. Anyway, I think that's all on this for tonight.
Thank you.
All right, we'll get the revised plan in as soon as possible, and fingers crossed, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Next up is KTB Properties Site Plan Review for Non-Conforming Use. Who is speaking for the applicant?
Jack Banning is speaking, along with his wife Irene on the screen here.
Hello.
Hi.
Do we have any sketch to share or anything like that?
Drew has everything. I don't. I've been working with him, and he's the one who told me that we had to go through this, and he might be better off explaining exactly what the issue is, because I'm not quite certain.
We're gonna let Tricia pull up the sketch.
Okay.
Then you can talk about it, and Drew can chime in. And
okay.
Just tell us, start off with once she gets it up, what the project is, and
yep,
etc.
Well, you can't see much here on the way.
Can you zoom out a bit,
Yeah.
Drew?
There you go.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, there you go. Basically, what this is the old Crumpets building, which was then Agriturismo for a while, and then Diners for a while, last one being, I think, called Pops, which we purchased recently to be used by Michelle and Patricia Jean for a new restaurant, because they're no longer have Stissing House. And what we're asking is, you can see the building. I can't do the pointing very well here, but you can see the structure. And at the bottom toward the bottom of the screen, you'll see the open space. And what we've been proposing is to put a small area for seating outside in nice weather or in COVID weather for that matter, for dining. And that's what we're asking for. And the way Drew explains it to me is that this is because this once was grandfathered, but no longer is because it's been vacant for over a year, that asking for this additional use, it's an alternate use application or something. I think that's what Drew called it. And that's all I know.
Actually, Jack, I'm going to cut in for a second.
Thank you.
What I took this as, because it was, in operation prior to the adoption of zoning, considered a non-conforming use. And what they're doing essentially by having seating outside, I consider it to be an expansion of non-conforming use. And that's what they're here tonight for. They're aware of the 25% limit, and this has been modeled to meet that conformity.
That's all I know.
So this is just about the patio, not about the actual restaurant. Is that right?
It's not even a patio.
Correct.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. It's just it's some gravel and some tables. That's it.
Drew, does setbacks come into for something like that, or no? It's not even something that setbacks would be addressed by, correct?
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to be a problem in the MS district anyway, the hamlet. Again, I felt like this is just an expansion of use, and I felt that's why Jack should come to you and have it looked at.
Warren, do you have comments on that, like just as far as proceeding in this manner with this application?
Well, I think Ray had commented that he needs a sketch plan. So, I mean, this doesn't meet the requirements of a sketch plan. So that has to be.
Well,
what would be the requirements for a sketch plan?
Providing just the limits in the area and material that are going to be used as far as that back seating area.
I can't see the sketch the way it's displayed now. I believe it says that on the sketch.
It shows the size. It's drawn in there. It's in pencil, unfortunately, I guess.
I can't see it on the screen. So if we can zoom in on that part behind the building that we're talking about.
Right by where it says 0.128 acre. Yeah,
there we are. Down there, yeah, right there.
Yeah, I see the ghost thing.
It says seating area, and it's drawn 20 by 21, I think it is.
This looks like 30.
Or 30 by 21, whatever it was, it conforms with that 25% area use that Drew mentioned. I'm sorry it's so faint, but it's on there. Huh?
It says 30 feet, and then I think it says 20 feet.
20,
correct.
20 or 21.
That's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
I would just have,
And
it looks like Lyndon had prepared the survey map. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I would just have Lyndon formally place that on rather than having it in ghost pencil.
I'm sorry about that.
Well, it doesn't look to scale for one thing, just
Yeah,
to
just
my
the-
very amateur eyes.
It is actually.
So I would just have, again, the survey information is there. The meets and bounds descriptions, all of the building locations are shown, fence lines are shown and so forth. So I would just have Lyndon update the plan just to show that area. So that way it's clearly shown. And
Okay.
obviously the scale.
And he'd have to convert it to a sketch plan for this, with,
Yeah, it should say,
with all the owner information, not the prior owner information.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So that would mean that we would have to resubmit that in another 4 weeks? And the business can't open until that's submitted, is that correct?
That doesn't affect.
Is that correct?
Who are you asking? I'm not sure.
You.
I mean, I don't issue permits. Drew issues the permits.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But you are the legal opinion.
Right. So if Drew says he can issue a permit without site plan.
Warren, I'm happy to weigh in on
He
this.
can
This is
issue a
fine.
permit.
This does not stop the business from opening. It will stop you from using the outdoor seating.
Right.
Okay.
So the interior of the building can be
Yeah,
open.
that has not, we don't
for
have any
regular seating.
jurisdiction
Okay.
over that.
But
Okay.
we're gonna need this approval before you can let people eat outside,
Okay. Okay.
okay?
But
So-
you have, have you seen the letter from the neighboring property owner? You should be aware of that.
No,
I've
we have not.
Are
Who
you-
was that letter submitted to?
I assume that it was submitted to the board today.
Yeah, it
Came to
came
all of us.
today, so I don't know how far it got.
You should get a copy of that. They raised an issue in the letter about a termination of discontinuance of a non-conforming use. Was the restaurant closed down for a period of time?
Right, which is why we are reapplying, right? That's the whole point.
Well, take a look at the letter because they're your
Well, if
neighbor.
somebody could forward us the letter, that would be helpful.
No,
I guess Trish could do that.
so because the restaurant, it was a restaurant for years, right? And then the zoning came in. And then, so it was a non-conforming use because it existed before zoning. Is that correct, Warren?
Yeah, it's considered a non-conforming use because in the when did we pass the zoning? In 2009. That the zoning district that property's in doesn't allow for a restaurant, but a restaurant existed prior to that use, prior to the zoning code. So it's what we call a non-conforming use, and the statute allows for an expansion of up to 25% of the original square footage of the building, which you're within, for the expansion. And that's why Drew sent it to the planning board. But I'm just concerned that the board can approve this. Just concerned that you're going to have a neighbor that may file a lawsuit. So you really have to pay attention to the objections in that letter.
I'm sorry, I am confused. So it hasn't, so the zoning was passed in 2009.
Correct.
And the contention in the letter is that there hasn't been a restaurant there since 2009?
No, for the last year.
No, for a year.
For a year. The zoning
And
code
so
provides
then,
that.
and so then that, because the zoning does not allow for a restaurant in that area. And
Drew, is that
I have a
correct?
question. I have a question. Pause a second. We don't allow restaurants in the Hamlet Main Street. Is that correct?
On the
I guess not. I mean,
Full of restaurants. It's got a restaurant in the old Ford dealership.
No,
And
we
that
allow
restaurant
restaurants
is,
in that
that's post 2009.
I don't know. All I know is that's what the zoning code says.
what, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Raplansky.
All right,
What does the zoning code say?
No, just hold on one second, Mrs. Banning.
You have to.
Drew, everyone
Yes.
hold on. I have some questions. Drew, okay. What zone is this property in?
This is in Main Street. I'm sorry, the Main Street does allow restaurants. My interpretation of the zoning law was because this was in place before the adoption of zoning, it's never been reviewed. It's never been looked at. So it's existing as a restaurant,
Oh,
which is an
okay.
allowed use, but it's not ever been reviewed. So therefore it's a non-conforming use.
Yeah.
Because there may be aspects of this restaurant that doesn't meet our zoning law or something like that, but we don't know that. So therefore it has to be just automatically given non-conforming use status because we don't know anything about it other than the blanket term restaurant.
Okay.
Interestingly,
May I ask a question? Am I hearing this correctly, that the review here is not just for the outdoor seating area, but for the entirety of the restaurant?
I don't think you're hearing that correctly. I think you're hearing. I think the application is for. I mean, you made the application. The application.
I
for
understand.
an
I understand what the
expansion.
Sorry.
Do you want me to
Go
answer
ahead.
your question?
Yes, please.
You made an application for an expansion of a non-conforming use. That's what's before the board. That's what we're looking at.
Got it.
I didn't make the application. You made the application.
Correct.
So and the reason you need that is because, yes, a restaurant is permitted, but a restaurant requires a special use permit through or site plan approval.
I believe it's special use permit.
Okay, it's never received those approvals. So under our zoning law, it then has what we call non-conforming use status. So you're permitted, you could just make an application for, why don't they just make an application for outdoor seating for the restaurant rather than as a non-conforming use if it's permitted, Drew?
And then would the entire operation be reviewed? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
because that's internal. Does the internal aspects of the restaurant require approval?
Well, if it's never been reviewed, wouldn't it?
Well, but it's a non-conforming use that is still grandfathered in, except.
Yeah, I mean, I can't answer. I'd have to give that some thought. You should, you might want to talk to a lawyer about that now that you've been threatened with a lawsuit. But you might be better off applying for just a special use permit for the restaurant. I can't imagine it would. I mean, it'd probably be granted. I can't imagine what the opposition would be to a restaurant.
May I ask a question?
Except that there is opposition, because just for the record, in case other people don't know it, I didn't hear anybody say it, but this isn't just a handwritten letter by a neighbor. This is a 3-page single-spaced letter by a law firm in Poughkeepsie. So when Warren says threatened with a lawsuit, that's why.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
My question is, so I can't really speak to this since I haven't seen the letter. And I am assuming since the letter was directed at the planning board, the lawsuit is threatened to the planning board. Is that correct? Am I understanding this correctly?
There was no direct threat for a lawsuit, but it's kind of implied by the tone of the letter.
But it was addressed to the planning board.
Yes.
Okay.
Huh.
So, okay, then may I take a step back? And I am just asking these questions because I'm trying to understand the situation we find ourselves in now. Is what has been suggested in this most recent exchange that in fact the use of the space as a restaurant could potentially be under review or is under review?
Who's answering? Can we unshare the screen for now, please?
Yes, please.
All right.
There we are.
All right.
So Drew, if they just come with an application for the restaurant, then the restaurant would no longer be a non-conforming use going
If they were
forward.
approved for the restaurant, yeah, with outdoor seating, but
I'd like to read this letter.
you're going to have a
If I
challenge
could,
to the outdoor
I'd like
seating.
to read this letter and then I think I'll talk to Jack and we'll figure this out.
Yeah, I think you should look at the letter and then you make a decision of how you want to proceed with the application.
And it's okay for you guys to share the letter with us, even though it wasn't addressed
Yeah,
to
no,
us?
you're going to get sued also. If we get sued, you get sued.
Well, and it's not a privileged letter. It is a matter of
Public record.
I'm not worried about a lawsuit. I've defended hundreds of them, maybe more than that. But I just want you to be aware of the issues that have been raised. I mean, they were raised at the 11th hour tonight, so you should be prepared to address those issues. The other thing is, we in Rhinebeck, and this is not totally related to this.
1 second, can everyone mute besides Warren, because it's someone.
Yeah, sorry. In Rhinebeck and other towns, because of the COVID, we have been permitting, and we did in Hyde Park too. No, we did in Hyde Park. We've permitted outdoor seating at restaurants during the COVID crisis. utilizing the executive order of the state and executive order of the county, what do you call him? Molinaro. What is he? The
Executive, county executive.
The county executive. That might be another route too, to allow for outdoor seating under the COVID crisis, to allow restaurants to operate during this period of time. But now that a lot of the restrictions are being lifted, so may not be as applicable.
Well, except as you raised at the beginning and as this letter raises, there's the 1-year vacancy issue that may make the whole restaurant itself a problem. No?
When did that occur?
When did what occur?
The vacancy.
Well,
it's not vacant now. It's been operating.
No, it
It's
has,
vacant.
it is vacant now and
Oh, it
has
is?
been for just about a year, I think. But
Just about, or a year?
I honestly don't know.
Does it really matter?
We were just trying to do something.
Go in tomorrow morning and sell a hamburger.
My question, let me ask this and put the question slightly differently. What I see on the tax parcel map says the zoning, it says specifically restaurant. It says Hamlet or whatever that code is, HB or whatever it is.
Hamlet business.
Yeah, it's Hamlet business.
Hamlet Business Restaurant is what it says on the tax parcel map.
Yeah.
So I assumed it was a restaurant.
It was, yeah, for many years.
But I assumed that, but that's what it says under the zoning code. It says specifically restaurant on the tax parcel map. So I assumed that meant it was approved as a restaurant, not a special use as a restaurant.
No, it has nothing to do. Tax parcel, what they assign on the tax parcel only is for assessment purposes. All that means is that it's assessed as a restaurant. It doesn't mean
Okay,
that
I
it
got
doesn't.
you. But it's not up to Drew.
One
It's
second,
not up-
Jack. Can I? please
Yes, Michael, yes, go. Sorry.
All right, so I'm looking at the schedule of use regulations. Hamlet Business District, restaurants is site plan. Is it not? SP is site plan, correct, Drew?
Yes, I'm sorry, site plan, yes.
All right, so this is just a site plan approval. It's not a special use permit.
Oh, okay, that's good.
All right, so because it is in the business district, not even the Hamlet Main Street. It's in Hamlet Business. And so therefore, so I don't know what they're talking about saying restaurants aren't allowed in that zone, but that's not accurate.
That was my question. That was exactly my question.
No, they are permitted.
So I mean that's our core zone in the town. I mean,
Right.
Now, so with that in mind, so we want to, what are we doing? Are we doing just the seating outside? Or are we gonna just we have to do a site plan for this restaurant because it's been out of business for a year, correct? Is that right, Warren?
If it's determined that it's in the statute, that provides that a non-conforming use, and the reason it's non-conforming again is not because it's not allowed, but it never got a site plan approval. If that's discontinued for any reason for over a year or over, then you lose the non-conforming use status. So the worst case scenario in that case is that you would have to apply for site plan approval for the entire restaurant, including the patio in the back.
So is it your suggestion then that is what we should do for the next planning board meeting?
I can't, I'm not giving, I didn't give legal advice to the last applicant.
Okay, so Warren, I'm not
I would talk
asking
with Drew
you.
about it. I think he'll lead you through it.
We'll talk to Drew.
Yeah.
We're getting a
Can
nod.
I just get a nod from somebody?
Yes.
So we don't have to come
Have Jack
back
come and
again and
talk
again?
tomorrow.
Yeah, talk to Drew. He will guide you on the direction you should head in.
Exactly. And
Okay.
I'm very, very comfortable talking to Drew. Thank you very much.
All right.
And if
And
Drew
we
has
still have a
questions,
meeting.
he calls me and we talk about applications. So
Of course.
And we might have a meeting on in 2 weeks. Who knows?
I think at this point we have to. Like, I mean, I don't know if everyone's available. I mean, there's so many issues we have to go over.
We got to move things along.
Yeah. All right. All right. So, and obviously you get the sketch plan up to the site plan, you know, according to the regulations that's in the zoning, what's required of the site plan.
Right, and Drew will explain that to me, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you don't need all the requirements of this. If you look at the site plan, some of the stuff you don't need, so you can either disregard that or ask the board that you be excused from supplying. Linda knows how to do these. He's done them before.
Just
If
for
that's your-
clarification, may I ask who is going to forward that letter to us?
Tricia will. That. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tricia.
I already sent it to Mr. Banning's email.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. All right, Drew, you and I we'll talk.
Absolutely, Jack.
What day is today? Wednesday? You don't have office hours tomorrow. If we're going to try to get this done inside of 2 weeks, when can I?
Did you say the Stissing House owners were moving to your restaurant?
Well, the people who ran Stissing House, the chef and Michelle and Patricia Jean, who'd been there for umpteen years.
Oh yeah, sure.
And so we did this restaurant for them, so that they're the ones that'll be operating it. The old Stissing House is doing work now. They've apparently hired a chef, I heard today, so they're going to be reopening as well.
That'd be nice.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jack, and good luck with your application.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Drew. Good
Have a
night.
good night. Next up, we have a sign permit.
Oh my God, I thought we were finished.
No. Duchess sign per. Here's is the applicant here? Is that you, Brendan? If you can, do we have any sketches or pictures of the sign to put up to share?
Yep, there you go.
There we go. All right, go ahead, tell us.
Sure, just looking to do a pretty simple sign out on Ryan Road, so we can replace the corrugated temporary signs that we used when we were briefly open in the fall. We're working towards more of a full-fledged opening on the site for the summer, and basically we need people to be able to find where to turn in the driveway. Is the first step of making this project finally more than what it's been. So it's a pretty straightforward, freestanding double-sided sign. We tried to make it as aesthetically pleasing as we could within kind of our branding and our color scheme, and that's what you see in front of you. I mean, it's only about 16 square feet. It's under 6 feet tall. We're not proposing any lights on it at this point. We may try to light it later, but for now we just are looking to get some pretty basic signage up at the end of the driveway.
And that's wood. The posts are going to be wrapped in some sort of vinyl. Is that?
Yeah, so they're wood posts, and pretty much all these specs came from my sign vendor, Timely Signs in Kingston, and they basically pushed me in this direction in terms of materials, and told me that this is pretty much the nicest sign that they put together. So they strongly suggested the PVC wrapped posts and not just wood posts, and they also pushed me towards this, rather than having the sign be aluminum and printed, they pushed me more towards it's a vinyl graphic on the actual sign material between the posts. So they said that's the most durable, that will hold up, it won't fade, it won't start to peel or chip or anything like that. So this is their rendering, this is their cut sheet for the sign.
Okay, very good. Before we get into legal stuff. Does any one of the members have a question about the actual sign before we take it off the screen? Seem to be. Okay, can we stop sharing the sign? Oh, good. Drew, can you tell us what are issues or what's the law? Refresh us on what the regulations are and why it's before us.
Well, sign regulations, as you know, they were revised in the last zoning revision, I think in like 2015. And it gave me the authority to issue sign permits. But basically that's only in the MS and the business district because they're size specific. It's all the specifications are in the zoning law. When we get out of those two districts and we get out into where Dutchess Spirits is, basically the zoning law gets a little vague and it says the size and contents of the sign shall be the minimum essential for legibility and for the provisions of information. So I felt it becomes much more judgmental in those districts and therefore it should be planning board review.
And the size of this sign conforms with,
Well, that's the issue, Michael. There really is no sign, size for the sign. In the business district and the Main Street district, it says very clearly a building over 5,000 square feet gets 24 square foot sign. Building under 5,000 square feet gets a 16 square foot sign. We don't have any of that once we leave those two districts. So that's why I felt this is much more, judgmental and it should have a board review.
right, I remember we did something like this with a kennel that was putting up a sign.
That's correct.
Warren, any issues with this? I mean, if we're fine with it, we can just go ahead and.
I don't have any problems with the sign. I just, are the other issues resolved with the Dutchess County Department of Health? There was this lengthy letter that they had sent that I got a copy of. Is that still?
It is. We're working through it with them. My understanding from my civil engineer is that they have approved our proposal for basically a phased development of the improved septic system on the site. One of the things that they're requiring us to do before we open, which we're in the process of basically just waiting for the work to happen, is the installation of a grease trap out in front of the building under the driveway. That's in motion, and any and all of their other comments with regard to our UV systems and our booster pumps and our storage tanks in the two buildings, we have resolved, and we are just waiting for. I'm unclear if my engineer can just sign off on it and give them a certification, or if they have to come out and actually inspect it. But we're in the final stages of that work, and we will be completing the grease trap now prior to opening. And then we will be doing the improved septic system, the expanded septic system, a little bit down the road when once we get open and we have a little cash flow and a little ability to get that part of the project finished.
So the only concern I had, I don't know, Ray, did you get a chance to look at that letter? Oh, you're muted.
I have not seen the correspondence associated with the
Oh,
application.
you should take a look at the letter.
So if you forward it to me,
I'll send it out, or Trish could. Trish, you have it, or?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? The letter from the
Department of Health dated February 26th, and
oh, that letter. Yeah, I can get that to Ray.
yeah, send that to Ray. The only concern I have is that they said, has the Pine Plains Planning Board given preliminary approval for the proposed change in use as what appears to be more like a fast food restaurant? So I don't know what that's all about. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't, honestly, I'm not sure where they pulled that from. We as part of we're trying to get the kitchen in the building, signed off by the health department, and that's where the grease trap relates. we're basically going to be operating with outside food. We're not preparing food. It's just a very basic operation, but based on kind of where their experience with this property in the past, prior to my time owning the business, they insisted on the grease trap going in before they would even sign off on anything happening here. And that was kind of what was in that letter. And they took our description of the operations of the tasting room in our later phase for when we do get the kitchen up and running. They compared it just, I think, for their gallons per day calculation. They were comparing it to a fast food restaurant, and that's certainly not the concept here. So I think that was just for their in terms of calculating the flow rates and the size of the septic and the size of the grease trap and everything else. That was their closest comparison. They didn't know how to handle a distillery tasting room, I think.
So what I lost connection there for a little bit. What exactly again is the kitchen going to be preparing, or what is the kitchen for?
Well, eventually it's not contemplated right now in our early phase, but eventually it will serve the tasting room that's part of the second floor, the main floor of the distillery building itself. So even we in particular with the COVID rules that were in place and still actually were just pulled back, which is a nice change for us operationally. We had to provide food item to anyone who came and got a drink or a taste of, did a tasting at our bar. And so the idea is to eventually get the tasting room up running. It's 40, 50 seats in there, and the kitchen will serve, small plates and, just snacks and small plates to go along with, tasting of what we're producing and tasting what we carry, in the distillery itself.
So, okay, so who, I don't know who, either Warren or Drew answer this question as far as, so that's not a restaurant? That's like where are we getting these definitions from? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like as soon as we start serving some food, and I think I sent you a copy of the letter that I sent to Brendan, that, this has been a kind of an odd thing, and I just want to go over this with the board. When Duchess Spirits was first built, the zoning law that was adopted in 2009 said all agricultural operations are exempt, period. That's what the zoning law said. It was that blunt. So the owners of Dutch Spirits went to Ag and Markets and they laid out their operational plan. And actually, I have a letter from the commissioner of New York State Ag and Markets stating that what they were going to do was an agricultural operation. So it that went together with our zoning law, and it meant it was exempt. Since then, we've changed the zoning law. So my position has been they had tastings and on-site sale of the product that was allowed under what they had applied for originally. Anything beyond that is going to take planning board approval.
In other words, Ag and Markets didn't say anything about serving or preparing food. Is that what you're saying, Drew?
No, it was tastings and
right.
On-site sale.
Understood.
And this is in Hamlet. What is it now?
This is not in the Hamlet, I don't think.
Hamlet residential, correct? The properties might have like two different zones, but
it does have two. You're right.
Is the building in the residential zone, or is it in rural?
It's in the rural, I believe, the building. The front of the property is in the Hamlet district. The rear, mid to rear, where the building is most likely rural district.
They got to look. I mean, I don't know why. It's weird they drew that line. I'm looking at it right here. It's way back. Okay. I don't know. I mean, it might be in Hamlet residential.
Now, at some point, I think I've done some kind of overlay. You know, I've printed out 2 maps with the zoning map and I think the GIS map. And I'm pretty sure that the building is in the rural district.
Well, then it's a special use permit. Correct?
You mean for a restaurant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we, how, you're saying that it's going beyond what the ag market's allowed, right? By serving.
Well,
food.
I mean, I've talked to Brendan and it doesn't seem like he's ready to start doing any food as of yet. He doesn't have a kitchen, really.
Correct.
Well, he's working on it. I'm, is it me, guys? Like, I don't know. He's working on.
So the plan here is, well, I think 2 things. The farm distilling license that we have since gotten late last year, or kind of midsummer last year, is an interesting one. It permits, it's very broad, and it's much broader, I think, than was originally the way it was originally written. So it permits, with that liquor license, it permits us to operate a restaurant, a tasting room, catering. It throws in their hotel. It throws in, a wide range of hospitality uses that is pretty unique to that farm distilling license. And that farm distilling license, basically, you have to meet certain requirements to get that license. It's a pretty narrow, specific license. The ultimate plan here with the property is to get the interior of the building operating as, obviously there's the distillery, which is, the factory, if you will, right? We're currently blending and bottling spirits there as we speak. We started last fall. The idea here is to pick up where the previous owner left off in terms of construction and closing out permits and getting the building completely signed off with Drew and the building department, and eventually operating a 30, 40 seat tasting room on the second floor, and the third floor would probably end up being, some private events, that sort of thing. What we're doing right now, and that's what I'm calling phase 2. Phase 1, we're operating outside. We have food trucks coming, that from off premise to provide food to the people that come visit, and we're conducting tastings, and we're selling our product, and we're doing that while we're going to follow up with, getting ready for phase 2. And quite frankly, I haven't spoken to my land use attorney about this, because Drew and I just basically started having this conversation. It's probably you sent me that email probably about a month ago, and I've been trying to figure out, the cleanest, best way, the way that makes the most sense for us to kind of proceed on that front. But in the meantime, like I said, we're just doing a pretty basic, temporary kind of phase 1 that just gets people coming to the site, knowing who we are, and no food preparation. We're not running the tasting room as a tasting room with food. It's really there, it's more retail, for someone to come in and buy our bottles, buy our product, and kind of get familiar with the site and start, building this business as we get into the future phases. But when we went to DOH to kind of close out the issues with the water and septic, they insisted that we get the kitchen piece of this further along. They wanted the grease trap in, because they don't trust, I think, any applicant who has a kitchen that says, well, I'm not going to use it. They said, okay, yeah, sure. So they said, well, it's a condition for you. You need to provide us, we need to figure out the septic situation and get that upgraded to match the capacity of the building. And then while you're doing that, we want a grease trap to be part of that. So that's what we're doing. And, it's kind of, it's not my favorite thing in the world to do right now, but we're literally putting in a grease trap for a kitchen that we're not going to use. But you know, that's what they want. That was a condition of their approval, and we're gonna do it.
And so meanwhile, you need a sign.
Yes.
So Warren, that doesn't, I mean, it was good to get the update on that, but it doesn't affect the sign permit at all, correct?
Yeah, I couldn't quite hear everything you said, but you asked about the sign.
It doesn't affect the sign permit, you know, that was good to get.
Sign
his
permit,
update.
I have no problem with that, but I seem to remember this as being fairly acrimonious with the prior owner. I don't know if Ray recalls that. And I think this all stems from the fact that there are exemptions under the Ag and Markets Law for accessory types of uses for agricultural uses in order to assist farms and agricultural uses in being viable. So they allow wineries to have tasting rooms and small restaurants and things like that. And then there was an amendment to that allowed for put distilleries into that fold. They became agricultural uses. And I seem to remember the prior applicant having some real contentious issues with the planning board about whether he needed and was going to get the approvals from the planning board. And I haven't heard much about the application since. The only thing I would like, and I think the town would like, is for Drew to keep an eye on this project and let us know if it gets to a point where the property owner, the new owner, has to come in and get approvals from the planning board, because you're not totally exempt if you're going to be operating a restaurant there. If the uses go beyond what Ag and Markets contemplates as an accessory use to an agricultural, then you've got to get approval from the town, and we would want to bring you into the fold on that. Make sure you do.
Yeah,
That's a conversation that Brendan and I've had, and I just want to say the lines of communication are working much, much better now.
Yeah, I
than
seem
they
to
used to
remember.
in Dutch Spirits.
I'm not going to comment on that, but I will say, I mean, it's just, you know, I know you guys collectively probably don't know a whole lot about me. This is it's not my first rodeo with a hospitality project. It is my first rodeo with a distillery. Most of my projects are down in the Beacon area. That's where I live. Although I do own 3019 Church Street. So I was very interested in the prior conversation about that house, which is diagonal from my house. But no, our intention here is to take this project from where it kind of stalled out and get it to the finish line and get it, turn it into, you know, the destination that it should be. And you know, it reminds me, one of the main projects that got me moved up into this area was the Roundhouse down in Beacon, and I worked with my family on that to basically restore a 1800s factory complex in Beacon and turn it into a hotel, a restaurant, and an event space. So I'm familiar with kind of all the ins and outs of health department and planning board. And for me, honestly, I can tell you that I did not necessarily anticipate Drew's email last month, because I was under the impression that all of my planned uses were already kind of signed, sealed, stamped, delivered, the whole thing. So I've spent the last month basically recalibrating our plan to fit it into what's permitted currently, while we also kind of figure out the strategy for moving forward to get this thing where we want it. And again, you know, I try to be as open and upfront as possible with what we're doing, and we'll continue that, and we'll continue communicating with Drew and kind of keep the board apprised as we move forward, because we will be looking, you know, look, having people outside on the property is fun and it's great, but you know, we have this 11,000 square foot building that is just screaming for, you know, it's a hospitality destination, and it really, you know, it's a beautiful building and they did great work there. And it really, anyone who comes to the site and comes to the town, it just raves about the town and the farm and everything else. So our goal here is to get it where it needs to be in a very quick way. That it's sat in its current condition for way too long, and we're going to get it to where it should have been.
So again, back to what's before us. Thank you for all that. And we look forward to
Sure.
seeing what ends up happening. Someone's everyone mute because I'm getting an echo of myself. All right, so as far as the sign permit, can we just do a verbal resolution to approve that? Yes, okay. So can I have
Wait,
oh, unless someone has a problem, go ahead. I thought we
yeah, I have a question. He mentioned lighting. He's not putting lighting on it now. Drew, will you keep an eye on that? It is a residential area. We do have different laws for our signs and lights. He should be aware of those, I think.
Maybe we should stipulate that when he decides to put lighting on, that he comes back and gets our permission for that also.
Back, great.
Yeah, when Drew issues the permit, Drew, you issue the permit, right?
Yes, I'll issue a sign permit.
So just specify in the permit that no lighting is permitted without further approval of the planning board.
Will do.
We close at dusk, so we're outside. We're closing at dusk. Lights are not necessary. So if and to be honest, ultimately, I would one of the things I'm exploring pretty in depth is how to get an entrance to this property that isn't on Ryan Road. In a perfect world, I'd like to cut a driveway in all the way up at 199. Because the property across the street from the distillery is also under our control. So we could, in theory, put a driveway from front to back, but that's phase 3. We'll call that phase 3. I got to just get open first.
All right, so can I have a motion to accept the sign application as presented without lighting? Someone make the motion.
Yes, so moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let it be shown that it passed unanimously. You have your sign. Good luck getting your business going. And thank you for sticking
Thank you very
out.
much.
All right. The only things we have housekeeping to do. I'll let Warren go after. So as far as having a special meeting, do we have to vote on that, or can I just set a special meeting? I forget. You're muted, Warren. You're muted.
Sorry. You can call a special meeting, but you have to go through the procedures. So if you have the night picked out now, I prefer if you did it tonight.
Do I have to have them vote on it, or I just said it?
Yeah. I mean, technically, the chairman has the power to set up special meetings subject to I guess it's the approval of the town board, so the planning board. So yeah, I would have a vote on it.
Okay, so can I have a motion to have a special meeting on the 26th? Let me just check my schedule. Yeah, the 26th at 7:30.
So what, that is May 25th?
May 26th, Wednesday at 7:30.
Okay.
That motion.
I'll second it. I'll second
All
it.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? To be shown that the motion to have a special meeting on May 26th at 7:30 p.m. passed. Tricia, obviously, please make the appropriate announcements where that has to go, please. Let me just go back to my, I think we can let the experts go. Is there anything else? As far as business, Drew, is there anything that we would need Warren or Ray for? No,
Nothing
yeah,
I'm aware of.
nothing else. Oh, God. Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, good night, everybody. Keep well.
Good night, everyone.
You know, I don't, the April minutes that went around, did everyone get a chance to look at them?
Michael, do you need me?
Oh yeah, Drew, no, I don't need you either.
Oh, thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Did everyone get a chance to review the April minutes?
Yes,
So can I have a motion to accept the April minutes?
so moved.
Second?
Second.
Someone? Whoever seconded, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let it be shown that the minutes passed. I don't even know. Other business. Is there any other business? I can't imagine at this point.
Got enough.
We'll save it for 2 weeks from now. Can I have a motion to
Adjourn. So moved to adjourn.
Second.
go to sleep?
I've moved to adjourn.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
See you in 2 weeks.
Great.
Take care.